This is a question from Andrew from Job chapter 19. How does Job know about the resurrection, and who would teach him, or did he have some kind of book to study from? And in Job, it says, verse 25 in chapter 19, it says, "As for me, I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will take his stand on the earth, even after my skin is destroyed. Yet from my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall myself behold, and whom my eyes will see, and not another. My heart faints within me. If you say, how shall we persecute him? What pretext for a case against him can we find? Then be afraid of the sword for yourselves, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, so that you may know that there is a judgment." Okay, Job is expressing how he knows there's something beyond his life. He knows there's a Redeemer beyond his life, and he knows that that Redeemer has the power to raise him up, at the end of life. By the way, Abraham thought the same thing. Abraham told his servants when he took Isaac up, knowing full well he was going to go and slay Isaac, he said to his servants, "You guys stay here, the lad and I will return." Now, was he lying to the servants, or did he understand and know something that God would have to do? Well, he knew that God's promise was that through Isaac would his descendants be as the stars of the heaven. If you've given me that promise, I believe that. Now, if you're saying to me, well, I want you to take Isaac and I want you to slay him, okay, fine, I'll slay him. But obviously you got to raise him back up again so he can fulfill the promise that you told me about my descendants being as the stars of the heaven through him. Because we don't have any descendants yet from him, so, you're going to have to raise him back up. And that was the faith that Abraham had, and that was when God tested to prove to himself that Abraham would follow his instructions, and that he followed his instructions because he believed God. He believed in God, therefore he did what God said. His faith was counted for righteousness. I know he's going to fulfill the promise. You want me to kill him? Great, I'll kill him. Because I know you're still going to have to do something to make him do what you promised he would do. That's working faith. That's where you have, and he knew there had to be a resurrection for that. If you remember going, let me add this also. If you remember going all the way back to the Garden of Eden story, when Adam and Eve were first created, as they're explained to us, were they mortals? Did they have only a certain set time of life they were going to live? Or were they immortals? And the answer is they were immortal. They were going to live forever. God created them, and that's where they were going to live. They were going to live forever. However, because of sin, that changed for them. They introduced death. And God warned them that if you eat of that, surely you will die. And they ate of it, and boom, here we got death. So God knows what it's like to have immortals. So if he's come to correct what has happened from the original story, then the correction is to get man back to the point where he's back to immortal again, that he has life and he lives like he was originally created, the way God purposed to begin with. So where did the earliest saints ever hear of the subject of the idea of the resurrection? They heard it from the original story of the Garden of Eden, because their father and their mother originally were immortal, and they slipped into death. And if God's going to correct the death thing, then we're going to go back to the way we were originally created. So that's where they got the idea there has to be a resurrection. That's where they got the idea. That's where we're ultimately going to go. God's going to fix this problem. We're going to be back to where we were supposed to be to begin with. That's the reason why they believed in the resurrection, even before we had a Torah, even before we had other stuff being taught. That was from the original story.
Just been